Wolfman is a horror film directed and co-written by Leigh Whannell. The film is a reboot of the 1941 classic from Universal Pictures. The film stars Christopher Abbott, Julia Garner, Matilda Firth, and Sam Yeager. With his marriage fraying, Blake persuades his wife Charlotte to take a break from the city and visit his remote childhood home in rural Oregon. As they arrive at the farmhouse in the dead of night, they're attacked by an unseen animal and barricade themselves inside the home as the creature prowls the perimeter. As the night stretches on, Blake begins to behave strangely, transforming into something unrecognizable. Despite the detailed synopsis, this review will be spoiler-free. I was extremely impressed with 2020's The Invisible Man, which was also written and directed by Leigh Whannell. That was a really good movie, so I expected something pretty good when it came to Wolfman, even when considering that it is a January release, which is usually a cinematic dumping ground. The poster with the girl's hands making the W is pretty slick. Despite the quality on display in The Invisible Man, I think Whannell fumbles here. The first 20 to 25 minutes are promising. The metaphors are not subtle, but the screenplay still does a pretty good job of setting up a father-daughter relationship that you can root for. The performances by all the actors are pretty good. Unfortunately, the mother character is kind of underdeveloped, as too is her marriage. The story felt generic at the start, but it was still promising, like I said. The opening sequence subverted my expectations at every turn and seemed committed to building atmosphere. The idea of having the character slowly become the Wolfman is one that I appreciate, as quick transformation scenes have been done time and time again, and you're not going to get anything as innovative as An American Werewolf in London or as fun as Teen Wolf. We've been there, we've done that. Give me something a little bit different, and thankfully this film does. The makeup effects are really quite well done, with 2 or 3 minor prosthetic moments that are effective and memorable. I'm glad that there was an emphasis on the makeup rather than CGI. Once Act 2 starts, the film really drags. The characters do a lot of sneaking around, and there just isn't much of interest happening. I do appreciate that there weren't jump scares every few minutes, but it can get tiresome watching characters hanging around a house worrying for 20 minutes. The second half of the film is heavily hindered by poor lighting in nighttime sequences, and most of the second half takes place at night. It was often hard to see what was going on, as everything looked grey and muddy. I've noticed a lot of modern horror is lit this way, and I'm getting pretty fed up with it. I don't remember anything being lit like this when film was the norm to shoot on pre-21st century. It's almost like they haven't really figured out how to do this without true blacks. I just get really annoyed at the flat lighting. It makes everything look muddy, and I've just seen it all too often in recent times. And the film looks pretty good when it's daytime, so I don't know. Clearly the people working on it are talented, so it's just kind of annoying. Once the characters start running around and looking for ways out of the situation, there are a few script choices that don't make perfect sense and could annoy you. I can't spoil them here, but it's the usual kind of horror fare where you're just wondering why characters aren't doing particular things that maybe they could do that would be effective. You could have shaved off 20 minutes from this film, to be perfectly honest. I do stand by the first act and the makeup effects. This had potential. It just doesn't go anywhere interesting, and its subtext isn't subtle in the slightest. Nor does it have anything really very interesting to say on the subjects. I was hoping that this film would take its story in a different direction in Act 3, but it ends up being very predictable. For a January film, this isn't terrible. It is okay overall, but between the generic storyline, poor lighting, and slow second act, I can't really recommend this one. If you're a major horror fan, you've seen this kind of thing before, this may work on you if you're easily scared and you don't tend to go see horror movies, so you might not pick the tropes. Leigh Whannell also wrote the original Saw, which is a sharp and tight horror classic, so I did expect more, even considering that was 20 years ago. I wasn't hyped for Wolfman, but I still found it disappointing considering how good and honestly underrated 2020's The Invisible Man is. If you haven't seen that film, you should definitely check it out. It's pretty great. Wolfman will turn a nice profit as Blumhouse kept the budget low, so all in all, this isn't really a bad way for cinemas to start off 2025. If you keep your expectations low and you don't really take the film too seriously, then you may enjoy it.